Okay, it looks like the number of attendees is stabilized. I want to thank everybody for attending. This is the first webinar of the 22 webinar series. We're going to have try to have another 2 or 3 webinars this year on other relevant topics. I'd like to welcome Sarah Smith tonight, and she's going to be talking about rider preparation and self-care. Sarah's been a longtime NATRC rider. She started as a junior. I think she and I have lost track of how many national championships she's had. She's done TEVIS and successfully completed TEVIS. She has lots of experience in what it takes to be a rider in NATRC and AERC and perform successfully and in a healthy fashion. I'll pass it over to Sarah.
Hi, everybody. I'm glad to have you here tonight. And the main thing is not only are we going to have the information, but I want you guys to have fun with it as well. It's something that is very important to me, and it's something that I enjoy sharing. And I kind of do it when I'm judging rides, but I do it more inadvertently, and it kind of comes off as just off-the-cuff questions, usually from riders, as opposed to formal discussions. And so I'm glad to have the opportunity to actually talk about this a little bit more directly with you all. So our topic tonight is rider preparation and self-care. And the whole goal of tonight is to talk about us as riders, because where's our focus as riders? Bill, I hope you don't mind. I said this is a photo I took of you at one of our rides. But of course, our focus is where? It is on our horses, of course. You know what they say, always the bridesmaid, never the bride. You know, it's often no different for us as riders. We usually don't worry about us. We're focusing on everything for our horses. You know, all of our training and self-care takes the back seat, and we focus on preparing our horses and getting them fit, getting their needs taken care of, and then we overlook what we need to do for ourselves in order to be fit, healthy, and ready to ride. I mean, I can look back and I can think of plenty of times where I've compromised my own health and my own needs in order to compete and take care of my horse. How about you? I bet there's enough people in this group tonight that can probably say the same thing. They've probably compromised their own health on more than one occasion in order to take care of their horse. So the goals and objectives tonight, the disclaimer, I'm not trying to transform any of you into world-class athletes through this presentation. So if that was your goal, I'm sorry, but I'm probably not going to get you there. If you'd like to talk about other goals after this, I'd be happy to, but that's not our focus tonight. The goals are to, of course, be more mindful in your approach to your own training and preparation as a rider for long distance riding. And that's no matter the ride. I don't care if you're riding recreationally or if you're riding LED or if you're riding 100-mile endurance rides. Any long distance riding or riding that you're doing, this is good preparation for you. The third thing is to understand how to develop a physical training and mobility plan that's right for you. We're not all the same. You need to have a plan that fits you. The fourth thing is to be more aware of and focus on mental health and your personal well-being and how that influences your riding. And the last thing is to learn preparation strategy for the days leading up to the ride and self-care during the ride and after. So the goal isn't to transform you into world-class athletes. I'm afraid this is where the teacher or professor would tell you that you have stepped into the wrong classroom. I couldn't help but put Arnold on here because this is just a funny photo. But yeah, our goal is not to become this. Our goal is to get you functional and healthy and happy for your rides. So mindful preparation. Over the years, so I've been asked a lot of questions at rides, and most of them are, how do I successfully train and prepare my horse for a ride? How do I condition my horse? How do I get my horse more, to do better through PNRs? How do I get my horse to stop panting? How do I train my horse to stand still? How do I train my horse for mounting? I get a ton of questions, difficult equine behaviors. How do I work through that? But I'm very rarely, if ever, asked, how do I prepare myself as a rider? That's usually not a question that I get. The few times I've been asked that is if riders have very specific goals for themselves. I do believe, however, that a minimum level of fitness is beneficial for all riding. And it's not just distance riding, but if you are riding more than just a few miles, it is beneficial to be reasonably fit for both you and your equine. We all benefit from it. And when I say this, there's no distance that is exempt from the benefit of rider fitness and care. But obviously, there are going to be certain distances that benefit more from it than others. You're not going to want to go do a 50 or 100-mile ride and not be reasonably fit or fairly fit. I know that I wanted to have attempted Tevis without being reasonably fit. But whether you're doing your pleasure riding or if you're doing your first leisure division competition or you're doing your 100th open ride, you benefit from being fit and taking care of yourself. And I guarantee your horse would thank you also if they were able. Although they do indirectly, and I see it on rides. So having a fit horse for distance riding is obviously important to their safety and well-being, which is why you all take the time to train and condition your horses. You all know that. That's why you spend that time training and plan for it. You educate yourself on how to do that. But you being fit and healthy enhances your safety and well-being as well. And again, it benefits your horse. But if you do the research, rider fatigue is one of the major factors in rider option polls in long distance competitions greater than 50 miles. Now, while there are some factors that play into those stats, like if you look at the 50 and 100-mile endurance races across the country, rider options do also factor in people that poll because they detect a lameness or something else going on with their horse. So rider option doesn't necessarily just mean a rider that themselves is struggling. However, if you do look at the statistics, a lot of rider option is due to rider illness or fatigue, dehydration, and different factors. So rider option is an issue, especially for longer distances. So it is something that can be prevented most times, not always, but in most situations, it is simply dehydration and fatigue. It also does contribute to a multitude of issues that surface in your horse. And I see this a lot on rides, and you might notice it on your scorecards. And that's sore back, or because interference with the horse's natural gait and movement. Because our equitation is affected. When we get tired, we get sloppy. So if you're someone that posts, if you post the trot, when you start to get tired, you do tend to trot or post. Either you're not in unison with your horse, or you're posting against the cantle and you're smacking the horse's loins. There's all kinds of things that happen. Or if you 2-point, maybe you're 2-pointing inconsistently, or if you sit the trot, you're sitting heavier. There's a lot of different things that happen once you start to get fatigued. And then what that does is it impacts your horse and how your horse travels. So I do see it a lot with all different types of horses and riders. It's not just, I saw it a lot more with gaited horses and riders, but that has changed quite a bit as riders have become more educated in equitation. So that's been a great thing to see. But please note that is part of the focus of this presentation is what can you do to combat your own fatigue, and that's through training and fitness. So what does it take? And that's a balanced approach to training both you and your equine. And that partnership, of course, requires that 50-50 contribution for ultimate success. And I just had to post this picture. As the saying goes, don't skip leg day. I had to throw in the little chicken legs because that's kind of one of my pet peeves when I'm at the gym, or, when I see people, these people that have these really super awesome developed upper bodies and they look really great, but then they have these little tiny chicken legs because they've only focused on that upper body. It's no different for you and your horse. You have this super fit, awesome horse that's ready to go. And then there's the rider that is tripping all over themselves and can barely walk to check in. So, okay, I'm exaggerating. However, it is true that there should be, you need to find a balance between your program and your horses, and you should come as an equally matched team. Conditioned horse with an unconditioned rider only goes so far. And, your day is much better if you have something left in the tank at the end of the day. And it's much easier to take care of your horse at the end of a ride because they deserve that care. They've worked hard for you. And it's much easier to take care of your horse properly when you still have energy left. And so I posted a couple of questions here. Are you abnormally exhausted post-ride? Do you have muscle cramps, headaches? These are all indicators that you need to look at your pre-ride preparation plan as well as self-care during the ride itself. And we'll get into that more a little bit later. Understand your limitations and work with them. I'm sure a lot of you have already seen that meme to the right, because I've seen a lot of riders come to rides with casts or other things, because we all know that we're diehards and we ignore our own injuries to get back on the trail. A lot of us have barriers, correct? A lot of us have, whether they're physical, emotional, financial, whatever they may be, it is critical to identify those barriers. We can't ignore them. Don't ignore them. We need to fully identify them and give them the attention that they deserve. It may be a lot, it may be a little, but if you fully recognize them and understand them, it gives you a much more adequate picture of where you're starting and where you need to go. Whether you have, whether you're working through an old injury or you're working through a long-term or permanent injury or disability, it does take thoughtful and responsive programming. Most of us have probably been there, and you can't ignore it. And the more you ignore it, you can further exacerbate something and make it worse. So you need to pay attention to those things. Don't ignore it, recognize it, identify it, and plan for it and around it and what you need to do to accommodate that. You'll go to almost any expense for your horse, but what about you? And I shared this little photo. Your health is an investment, not an expense. We spend a lot of money on our horses, and, we often skimp on ourselves. Can you get by without spending a lot of money on yourself? Absolutely. We usually can. And that's kind of the beauty of our sport. It doesn't require fancy gear. You don't have to have the best of everything to do what we do. You just have to have certain things to get by. But with that being said, you should be willing to invest in yourself and your needs. We'll spend money on properly fitting tack and feed and supplements, veterinary care, and other holistic care services for our horses. But what are you doing? Are you doing any of that for yourself? I know some people are. Don't get me wrong. I know some people do, and they're really good about it. But by and large, I hear more people that will say, I can skip that chiropractic appointment, or I can put off that doctor's appointment. I don't need that. I'll be all right. I can wait another couple of weeks. I can get through that ride. I've heard that. I have said that. Those words have come out of my mouth more than I'd like to admit. But, I'm getting better about it. But it's something that we do need to pay attention to. And if we aren't functioning at our best, we can't do our best for our horses, even if we think we can. Because under the surface, all those small issues add up, and they play a role in our success or our hiccups as we work towards our goals. So be willing to invest in yourself as a rider. Physical and emotional health. And people think, oh, what does that have to do with anything? But successful and healthy riding isn't just about our physical mechanics. It is equally about our state of mind and our mental well-being. It's probably safe to say that we've all had moments or rides where we haven't been in the greatest headspace, and it likely has had a negative impact on our entire experience. Our ride, it's likely negatively impacted our horses. It's probably impacted other riders around us, whether we realize it or not. We may not always be able to fix these things, quickly that are ailing us emotionally, but just being aware of our mental health status and then preparing for it can go a long way. It can help us prevent some negative situations with our horses and people. And as people, it's far easier to let our egos get in the way and just say, hey, I'm fine, when we truly need to take that break and we need to be able to do some self-care. Just like physical limitations with the body, if we recognize our emotional limitations at any given moment and respect them, it can go a long way in prevention. And if you guys have questions at any point, please don't hesitate to say something. So the good stuff, training. Let's see, looks like I have hand raised. Bill, can you see, is there a question?
Yeah, so Mary Jo has her hand raised. For questions, it's best if you type them into the Q&A window, and then we can read them off when Sarah has got when we can have Sarah take a moment to break. Giving individuals a chance to talk in the webinars is a little bit more challenging.
Yeah, Mary Jo, if you would like to post your question in the Q&A panel, that would be fantastic. All right, so we already mentioned that you don't need to be a top-notch athlete or train as if you're prepping for an ultramarathon. But as we said, a basic level of fitness is beneficial. And keep in mind, effective programs are never one size fits all. And fitness programs, as well as nutrition, are as unique as you are. One thing I always caution people on is that, if you are looking for a trainer or a dietitian or someone to help you, please know that if their approach is simply cookie cutter and they're trying to apply something to you that they're applying to everybody else, I would question that. You may get results, but those results often plateau or aren't sustainable. So make sure that you're actually interviewing folks. So if you're actually looking for a trainer or a dietitian, just like as if you were looking for a trainer for your horse or a coach for your children or whatnot, you want to know that you're getting exactly what you want and that they are using an approach that is unique to you or your horse or your child. It's no different. So make sure that you're asking questions and make sure that they are taking into consideration any of your limitations or your needs and things that are specific to you. The critical factor with any fitness or nutrition program is sustainability long-term. And one of the biggest tips I'll give everybody in this group is look at what you do as a lifestyle rather than a temporary fix or a diet, because that will shift your entire focus and therefore your entire life path. For any of you that have taken centered riding lessons or anything like that and are familiar with the term soft eyes, I consider this the soft eyes approach in life. When you talk about hard eyes, it's where your focus is so direct and linear that you can't see anything else. Soft eyes allows you to see everything while moving forward. So keep that in mind. Again, with the training, avoid gimmicks. Our society is so materialistic and we like instant gratification on some level. It's just human nature. We all want to walk and follow that path of least resistance, that's normal. I hate to break it to you, but there just isn't an easy way to get fit and healthy other than doing the work and making lifestyle changes. So, gimmicks, yeah, they can look promising. They might say, yeah, you can have that supermodel body in less than 30 days. Does it happen? And does Betty down the street stay a supermodel for long after that program is stopped? I don't know. But I would say that final question for those paid programs and sustainability, can you sustain it yourself without having to pay a person, place, or business in order to maintain a similar level of success while not actively in the program? So keep that in mind, okay? With anything that you do, is it something that you can successfully maintain and comfortably maintain and that you enjoy? So that's something to keep in mind as well. When you do the work and you shift your lifestyle, then your body starts to do the work for you and works in a way that is natural to its own functions. And that's really the key. You don't need a gym or a trainer to get a reasonable level of fitness. You can do this from home. It doesn't have to be a formal event, but you do need to make a conscientious effort around it. You need to schedule time for it. You need to make it a priority. So even if it's, I use the example of 30 minutes, 3 to 4 times per week. Maybe it's 10 minutes a day. Whatever it is, you do need to set aside time, focus time, and know what you need to do for yourself in order to make it happen. If you don't do enough, you won't have results. But I also caution about doing too much. It's just like horses. Always assess where you're at realistically and work your way up. Long, slow distance applies to us as humans as well as it does the horses. So keep that in mind. We're no different in that way. Horses are just blessed because they get to maintain their fitness longer than we do. Their bodies, their physiology is just more conducive to that. I'm attending a pain academy through the VA, and they just educated us on this the boom bust cycle, which I thought was really relevant to what I'm talking about here. And the boom bust cycle applies to this particular section in that it talks about basically doing too much too soon. And you apply it. So you go in and you like, oh, I'm going to start this program and I'm going to work out. And so you go to the gym and you haven't worked out in years. And you're like, okay, I'm going to run 3 miles. So you go run 3 miles, and then you go and you lift 200 pounds and you do 50 reps of that. And then you go do 50 squats and then all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, what did I do to myself? And then all of a sudden you go into the bust mode, right? You broke yourself. So then you're laid up for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and then you feel better. Well, then you go back to the gym. You think, well, it wasn't so bad. And then you repeat that cycle again. Well, then you could only do 2 miles before you started to hurt. You could only lift 50 pounds before you were hurt. And then you were laid up for 2 months after that. So the cycles get shorter and shorter, and your recovery gets longer and longer. So that's what that boom bust cycle is. So you want to take care of yourself in the process, build yourself up. So depending on where you're at now, start slow and build yourself up. Pain does make you compensate somewhere. So always know that if you are in pain, you will compensate somewhere. So training, obviously you can gain fitness in many ways. I just threw up a few examples of ways that, I've used, other people have used for getting in shape. So there's so many ways to do it. And of course, this is not a comprehensive list, but you get an idea. And the beauty of all of these different things is that these activities can be modified or structured to accommodate the majority of physical limitations or disabilities. So if you are struggling with something, there are so many ways to work around a lot of those limitations with most of these activities. I mean, if you're able to ride a horse, it's pretty reasonable to say you can work with most of these activities in some way, shape, or form. Obviously, they're not all created equal. Not everybody is a runner. You don't have to be a runner. Walking, hiking, weightlifting, and strength training are really, really good for horse riders. Yoga, Pilates are really great for horse riders. Plyometrics, if you're not familiar with that, that's jump training. Just use a series of jumps and body weight to build strength. That's great for horse riders too, if your joints can handle it. Swimming, there's so many awesome things that you can do in a program, and you can do a combination of things, and that's actually really good for your body to do a combination of things and movements. The more you can do, the more versatile your body is, the better. So some of the self-care methods, taking care of your body and mind is essential. And I have utilized all of these self-care options, and I've also used them for my equine partners. So these are beneficial all the way around. And these are just a few examples. Obviously, there's a lot of different options. And I put the little note on the bottom that while there are many narcotic and non-narcotic drug options for pain management and treatment modalities, for purposes of this presentation, I'm only covering the holistic methods. I'm not going to get into a drug debate with anybody, and I'm not going to talk about the pain management with drugs. So, but what I have talked about for just these particular self-care methods, these are all natural, but chiropractic, acupuncture, acupressure, massage, TENS units. I don't know if you're familiar with TENS units, but they're very helpful. PEMF, and actually PEMF, which the pulsed electromagnetic field therapy, I used for both Tate and I went through that therapy after Tevis, and that was incredible. I mean, it was, I can't tell you the difference that it made for both of us. We had it done, it would have been 3 days post-ride by the time we had it done. And it made a big difference in both of our mobility and movement. Of course, there's aromatherapy, essential oils, which there probably was a couple of you that rolled your eyes at essential oils. And I put TG, which is therapeutic grade. Say what you want about essential oils, but I have had very good luck with certain oils. And keep in mind, certain oils are going to work for certain people and certain horses. Not all oils are going to be effective for certain people and certain horses because it's based on what your body needs at that given time. So please know that that's the case with oils. Physical therapy, Epsom salt soaks. There's so many different ways that you can take care of your body, and you can do this. Most of these things you can do at home, but again, there's a couple of things like a TENS unit. You can get TENS units through Amazon, for example. They're available just about anywhere. So pre-ride prep. And I don't mean packing your booze, but I do put in parentheses that you certainly can, because I know most of us probably do take some. But a little preparation can go a long way. And just as you spend time preloading your horse with electrolytes and hydrating mashes, you should be doing the same for yourself. So in the days leading up to a long distance ride or competition, please consider doing some of the following. I don't care what the weather's doing. I don't care if it's hot or it's cold. Just like your horse, no matter the temperature, you need to start hydrating and consuming electrolytes daily to prepare your body for the work and the electrolyte loss to come. If you can get ahead of it and stay ahead of it, you can prevent the deficit that negatively impacts your ride. Dehydration and electrolyte loss is one of the primary causes of rider fatigue and injury. So keep that in mind. A lot of riders complain about headaches, and oftentimes that is usually a hydration issue. If possible, reduce your stress. What can you take care of the week before? What can you do to not jam pack it? am guilty. I have been the Thursday packer where I'm ready to leave for a ride and I'm still trying to get everything together and running errands and trying to get everything done at the last minute. And what does that do to your body? You know, that increases your cortisol levels and stress. And while that's not always a bad thing, ongoing stress is. So if everything else in your life is stressful, or you've got, you know, a hectic job or other things in your life, and this just adds to the pile, try to do what you can to spread that out and plan ahead, because the more that you can reduce your stress, especially around your ride, it'll be better for you. Your horse will thank you, and you'll probably load better in the trailer for you as well. I do see I had a question about a resource that you trust on essential oils for horses, or do you have a list of what you've tried? I do, but I don't typically give that kind of advice in these sessions, just because that usually results in a debate. But Catherine, after this, I do have someone that I can refer you to for that. So I would be happy to do that, okay? Pre-ride prep, continued. So if you're actively working out, or if you're heavily working out, it is best to reduce your activity at least 3 days prior to the ride or competition to allow your body a recovery period, just like any athlete. And the same thing with your horse, just like you do with your horse before a ride. You typically aren't doing any kind of heavy conditioning rides, or probably not any conditioning rides leading up to that ride. It's the same thing for you. Treat yourself just like any other athlete. When you're going to that ride, don't be doing heavy 5-6 mile runs or heavy weightlifting sessions and different things leading up to the ride. Your body needs to rest and recover, just like your horse does. So just FYI, this next piece, this is strictly my opinion based on my experience. This is not a medical recommendation or anything to that effect, but regardless of your diet, getting your body shifted to more of a long burn system versus a short burn system is helpful for a long distance ride. And what I mean by that is going from a carbohydrate burn to more of a long-term, like a protein fat burn. So my intent is to not get into the carbohydrate debate, but the proof is in the pudding, and the joke is chia pudding, that is. So this usually takes several days if you typically eat the standard American diet, or a diet that's high in processed foods or carbohydrates. Now, the only reason I suggest this or recommend this, and it's only because I've tested it a lot over the last several years, and what happens to a lot of riders that are on a very high carbohydrate diet is I see a lot of people that end up with body cramps and the sugar crash. So they start to ride and then they get real woozy. And it's not even just about hydration, it's that sugar crash. They come down off of that, the carbohydrates peak, and then they just take that nosedive. So they could be perfectly hydrated, but their energy source has depleted. So they're either required to replenish those carbohydrates rapidly, which can be somewhat challenging if they don't have good carbohydrates. And that's half of it too, is non-processed carbohydrates. But if they have shifted their system to a slow burn, which I'm, more of a protein and healthy fats based diet. And even if they don't do that all the time, but they just do that for the long distance riding, it does make a difference having that shift in their system. They're usually less hungry, less headaches, things like that. So again, not a medical recommendation, not telling people to completely shift over. It's just something that has worked very well for me over the years, and it's worked well for other distance riders. I'm on several different endurance forums where they talk about diet and nutrition, and that's definitely been a consistent thing across the board. I'm happy to talk to people about this more afterwards if there's questions about that, but that's just a little piece if somebody's interested. Whoops. All right. Oh, crazy there. Okay. The other piece, are you responsible for another rider? Maybe you have a junior in your care. So not only should you do this stuff for you, but guide them in the same practice for their success. You know, it's hard enough. Like, so this year, that's a picture of my daughter, and she just started riding this year. And while it's a lot of fun, I've also found that it's a lot more work, and it's a whole added layer of responsibility when I have to take care of myself and another person, especially someone who's brand new to the sport and doesn't know anything. And so just making sure that she's also hydrating and drinking and eating properly, and, you know, then taking care of a horse, it's a whole nother layer that I'm having to learn for myself. So we can have all the latest gear, we can buy all the coolest stuff, but if we're not taking care of ourselves on the inside, we might just be looking fabulous in the back of an ambulance or on the side of the trail waiting for a safety rider, which I don't recommend. And I did put LED example. So, and I use this example about my daughter because we did our very first LED ride in May, and I was so focused on her and what she was doing and getting her through her first ride that I realized that I had not been drinking enough fluids myself. And even though it was a short ride, it was, 9 miles for LED, and, it wasn't extremely strenuous or anything like that, I still got a headache out of it because I hadn't been drinking properly and I wasn't taking care of myself, and my focus was elsewhere. So at the ride, yes.
Sarah, we did have one question from Mary that came up. What diets, what diets would you recommend? What has worked for you?
So I follow a pretty loose ketogenic diet, but I'm very what you would call metabolically flexible because I've been doing it for so long. So mine's pretty blended, but I follow a pretty strict, typically anti-inflammatory diet. And that's really just based on healthy fats and proteins and like healthy oils and things like that. So healthy meats. I try to stay away from processed foods as much as possible. It's hard, obviously, in today's society. And let's face it, I love sweets. I love candy. So it's a weakness. I admit it. But, and I splurge just like everybody else. But by and large, I try to eat well. And my primary diet is a ketogenic anti-inflammatory diet. So, but I realize it doesn't work for everybody. There's a lot of wonderful, and I hate to call it a diet because it's not a diet. I've been eating this way since 2017. It is a lifestyle for me, and that's what I have found works for me personally. But again, I'm happy to talk to people more in depth after, or if you want to email me with more questions, I'm very happy to talk to people about that, or if they have specific questions for them personally, I'm happy to do that. So at the ride, that's when we all lose our marbles and we think we have a plan, and then boom, we just start doing our thing. Make sure that you're eating and hydrating. I am guilty of not doing that. If you're riding Saturday or both Saturday and Sunday, make sure you're prepping on Friday with plenty of water and electrolytes. While food, especially healthy proteins, are important, fluids are critical. Saturday morning or before the day's ride, as you're caring for your horse, make sure you're preparing your own electrolyte beverage and consume it completely. So, at least 12 to 16 ounces of water. Now, I'm a big fan of BCAAs, which are branched chain amino acids, in combination with my electrolytes. You really need those BCAAs. They build muscle, they decrease muscle fatigue, they eliminate muscle soreness, all things that tend to come out of long distance rides. Depending on your preference or whether or not you eat breakfast, I don't happen to eat breakfast, but eat something light, but protein or healthy fat dense. Again, it's all about what's going to sustain you and not give you that crash as you're out there on the trail. If you do tend to get hungry while you're riding, pack a protein-enriched snack, jerky, protein bars, mixed nuts, et cetera, whatever works for you, but something that's of actual energy value to your brain and muscles. You don't pack junk, because that's not going to help you. Pack plenty of drinking water in your packs. This photo is actually this is post Tevis, and I was eating a slice of cold pizza and very happy to be out of my boots. So I'm sorry, Pringles lovers. I happen to like them too. But yep. And no offense to my folks from Texas. I didn't mean anything by that with the Texas barbecue, but nothing personal. Remind yourself to drink while you're out on trail. I do sometimes tend to forget that when I get focused on my horse and my horse's needs when I'm out there, and I get focused on the mission at hand, but drink. Make sure you're drinking when you're on trail. Pack electrolyte tablets or energy gels with you, if you're doing longer distances. I even recommend them for shorter distances, because it may not even be you that needs them. I've shared them with other riders. So, it might not be you that needs them. Post ride, get off your horse and go get an electrolyte drink. Replenish. Your horse won't mind. In fact, he'll probably prefer it, because you won't be dizzy and silly while you're taking care of him. And maybe you'll even be a little less cranky. You may not feel ready to eat right away, and that's normal, because your body reacclimates out of the performance and work mode that you were in. And then your other systems, so digestion and all of that, wakes back up, and that takes time. So it's normal to not want to eat right away. When you are ready to eat, start with something small, like easy proteins and anti-inflammatory foods. Don't go for that bag of chips or that leftover pasta in the fridge, even though it may be tempting. Ease your body into eating again. So supplement recommendations. I did just have to think about whether or not I actually wanted to include this, just because sometimes people get a little funny about that. But I am putting the disclaimer that, again, I'm not a doctor. I'm also not a company representative for any of these products I'm sharing with you. And I receive no compensation or free product for promoting these products. But these are the products that I have used pretty much exclusively for the last 6 years. And the reason that I have exclusively used them, and I'll tell you why. So the Body Fuse BCAAs 311, you can get them just about anywhere. They now carry them at Walmart. It used to be you had to buy them at a nutrition store, but Walmart's been carrying them lately. You can get them on Amazon. So they're very easy to find. They taste really good. They dissolve really well in water or other juice products, which is nice, because who can stand those powders that just turn to chunks and float on your water? It drives me crazy. This doesn't do that. The other benefit to this is that not only the BCAAs, which I absolutely love, but this also has electrolytes in it. So you're getting, the 2-for-1, which I really like. So it tastes great, easy to drink in the morning, throughout the day. So it's great to drink. I use it for workouts, rides, whatnot. But it also has several other, it's got B6, B12, potassium. It's got everything that your body needs to get through a ride. So I use this for Tevis. I've used it for every ride that I've been on in the last 6 years, and I've found it very, very helpful. It's been very helpful for recovery as well. The other is noon hydration tablets. I use those almost exclusively. Between those and the Hammer Nutrition and Duralights Fizz. So one of my key factors for selecting any of these products is the fact that they don't have sugar in them. So you're not going to get that crazy sugar crash. So if you are like me and you're following an anti-inflammatory diet of any kind, these will fit that. So you don't have all of the sugars and you don't have all of the extra garbage in these products. And that's one of the things that I always look for with them, in addition to what other benefits that they offer. But most of these supplements also have B6 and B12, which is equally important, as well as their potassium content, which is equally important to me. So all of these have that. And I've listed them in order of importance to me and choice. So the Hammer Gel Energy Gel Packs are what I call my last resort. Those are something I keep in my pack. I have them for, I have them in my pack for hiking as well. So if I'm out on a long hike or whatnot, I have those. And ironically, I've used them more, again, for other people. And those are just for rapid energy replenishment. And that's more of it's not considered a sugar dump. That's what I like about it, is it's not a sugar dump, but those will contain caffeine. That is the other thing I will caution you about when you are selecting any product, is whether or not it has a caffeine content to it. Now, some of those Hammer Gel products do have caffeine. 2 of their energy gel flavors have caffeine in them, and then some of them do not. So just be aware of that. So if you're caffeine sensitive, just pay attention to that. I know, for some people, caffeine's not a good thing. So if you have any issues with like digestive issues or blood pressure issues or ulcers, acid reflux, things that could be flared up through the use of caffeine, just pay attention to that with the products. But most of these products, with the exception of the some of the certain flavors of gels, don't have caffeine in them, which is another reason that I happen to have selected them. So, but these are my go-tos for hydration and BCAAs. And again, tried and true. I've had very good luck with them. And between my physical training I've done over the years and long distance riding and tennis, these have not let me down. So one of the last pieces that I wanted to talk about briefly, I know we're kind of coming up on our time here, is tack and equipment. So I know this doesn't really have to do with fitness, but since we're talking about rider comfort and things that can affect a rider in that regard, I do see a lot of issues with tack fit and the way that it fits with a rider. So I found this picture, and I mean, as you can see, that saddle clearly does not fit that rider, and nothing about that looks correct. But there's 2 very specific things that I have found that seem to impact riders the most. So there's a lot of things, as we all know, with tack that can affect a rider, but there's 2 things in particular that I see most commonly, and that's the twist on the saddle. So, and the twist is probably by and large the most misunderstood part of the saddle for a lot of people. And the twist, of course, so if you're looking at your saddle, you have your pommel, and then where the saddle kind of gets more narrow here, and where your crotch meets your thighs, that's basically where your twist sits on your saddle. So that's typically where I see the most issues for riders and saddle fit. And what that does, so if you should feel, if your twist fits you properly, you should feel an even distribution of pressure between your upper thighs and your crotch area. So it should feel like an even pressure all the way through. You shouldn't feel anything but even pressure. If the saddle doesn't fit there, that's often where I see riders that have their knees and their feet turned out. So if you're struggling with that, so start to think about your equitation and start thinking about, yeah, my feet and my knees turn out. And if you feel like your hips are hurting and splitting apart or whatnot, you probably have an issue with the fit of your saddle and specifically the twist of your saddle. Okay. It's not about your seat size or necessarily the way that your seat is actually shaped. It's the twist of your saddle. So just FYI, thought I would mention that. And then of course, the second most common issue is stirrup position and stirrup type. So, and again, all of this is all completely rider preference. So, you know, there are certainly aspects of stirrup position and type that are more conducive to long distance riding and riding in a centered and balanced position. But I do see that, you know, there are certain stirrup positions that would make a rider work harder in order to be centered and balanced and be able to keep their legs underneath of them. I see a lot of working saddles, particularly, a lot of the saddles that are branded as gated horse saddles, which, you know, I think it's kind of silly because to me, a horse is a horse. And gated horse saddles, I mean, a lot of them, they say it's because of the way that they're designed for the shoulder action, but I don't know. I still kind of disagree with that concept. But a lot of those saddles are designed with a more forward stirrup position, just like a lot of your Western saddles, roping saddles, cutting saddles. They are designed with a forward stirrup position with the ultimate goal of keeping your butt planted deep in that saddle. That's not the goal of what we do. That's not how we ride. You know, we don't want to be heavy and deep in that saddle. We want to be centered and light and balanced. So when you're trying to do that in a saddle that has a forward stirrup position, you're naturally going to fight that, having to try to bring your leg underneath of you. It can be done, and I've seen riders do it successfully, but a lot of them do complain about ankle pain, knee pain, hip pain, and different things trying to compensate. So pay attention to your stirrup position if you're having trouble with that or pain or difficulty with your position. And the other thing, of course, is stirrup width. You know, a wider stirrup base makes a difference just because you have more surface area to distribute your weight on. And it also promotes more circulation area. You know, it's like anything. You have, you know, something narrow digging into your foot or anything, it cuts off your circulation, right? You have more surface area to spread everything out. Things can move, you have more flow, blood flow. So same thing with your foot. If you have a wider stirrup, it'll move. So those are the 2 points I wanted to talk about with tack and equipment, because that affects riders' comfort and well-being on a long distance ride. And those are the 2 things especially when I'm judging, those are the 2 things I see the most of that are affecting riders negatively, not just in terms of position, but comfort. So when they ask me, oh gosh, Sarah, you know, I was so uncomfortable all day today. My hips are killing me. My ankles are killing me. You know, I'm hurting so bad. What can I do? What's causing this? But those are the 2 things that when I look at them and I look at their tack and I look at their fit and I look at their position, I see those the most. And I see I have a question from Kristen. On long and usually hotter rides, I've been finding that I seem to get a rash on my legs. Some of it seems to correspond to the half chap area. And I've encountered several other riders with a similar issue who think that their legs swell during the ride, which causes that. But since I can also get this rash on my quads area on a hot, sweaty day, I don't think that's the reason. Any ideas? So actually, that is possible. So the swelling could come from, so the twist, so if you think about it, now, what I will say about the twist is the twist issues do tend to impact women much more than men, and that's just strictly our physiology. That's just the way that we're structured. And it's just the way our pelvises are. Men tend to have a flatter pelvis by design, so they don't tend to have the same issues typically with a twist as women do. And if you think about how our pelvises are shaped and where all the nerves run, there is a possibility that there are actually nerves that are pinching, which could cause swelling. So there is that possibility. Not that that's the case, but that is a possibility. Some of it is just strictly you're spending a lot of time in the saddle. You might need to move your legs around a little bit more. I mean, literally, take your legs up and down and move them. And good old monkey butt powder. Because especially on hot rides, oh gosh, so the monkey butt powder and then the body glide. I put it on. You can put it on under your tights, all up and down your legs. Put it under before you put on your tights. Put on the body glide or the powder just to help with that rash too. Anything to keep stuff moving. That would be my recommendation. That's what I did on Tevis. I had body glide pretty much everywhere that could possibly rub, and I ended up with I had no chafing after 100 miles. So, but yeah, try body glide or monkey butt, and then definitely take your legs out of the stirrups and move them around. Lift your knees, swing your legs, anything. Get circulation moving. That helps too.
I'll make a comment on the rash. I'm one of the people who gets rash right above the top of my boots, underneath my chaps. I've had various people comment about it. Some people say on your socks, use Arm & Hammer detergent in your wash. That has helped some people. I make sure as soon as I get back into camp, I take my chaps off, just because there's a lot of heat in there, and the sooner I get them off, it definitely makes a difference on how much of a rash I have by the end of the evening. Just a couple quick comments. Are there any other questions?
There was somebody who was raising their hand, but I didn't see the question come up. So if there's a question, if you could type it into the question and answer panel.
Let's see, we have a few things in the chat section that I've missed. Let me run through them. Let's see. Mary commented, I found that wearing wool socks, even in the summer, prevents me from having the heat rash. Cotton was the worst.
Yeah.
I would agree with her on those. Having a good quality sock can make a big difference. Mm-hmm. Thanks for the information. This has been very informative. Thank you for emphasizing the strength and cardio training for the mileage. It's one of the things I've noticed also is, and I fall in this, is don't have too much pride when you're out on the trail and you're not feeling well. It's you're short on water or whatever. We have judges out there. We have P&R teams out there. Ask for help. Ask if they have water. Ask if they have peanuts. We have lots of people out there that are trying to take care of you and make sure you have a successful ride.
One other little tip, some people have also put pantyhose under their riding socks to help with chafing. I have never personally tried that, but I have heard that the nylon tends to make a difference too. So that might be something you could also try.
I'll give people a couple more moments to ask any more questions. I want to thank everybody for attending. We had really good attendance tonight. I want to thank Sarah for preparing this talk for us. Great job. Thank you very much. We are going to be having more talks for the rest of the summer. I got distracted and I didn't find out what next month's talk is, but I do believe we're having a talk in July, this is June, in July. We're shooting to have talks on the fourth Wednesday of every month, 7 o'clock Central Time.
Thank you,
All right.
everybody.